Hello, welcome to Access Paranormal's podcast. I'm Jamie Williams. This is Jonathan, who keeps disappearing now and then.
Yeah.
And over in America, we've got Nigel Bach from the Bad Ben series and his co-host, Scott Tomlinson. So it's great to see you both.
Hello and Happy New Year's, United Kingdom.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy
I hope
New
you had
Year.
Did you have a good Christmas?
No, I haven't gotten a single gift.
Welcome to my world, Nigel. Right?
Well,
You've
this
got
is
to
to talk to you two is my gift.
Exactly, yeah. And we've got to say, we've been talking to you back and forth, haven't we? Because we've started to do a couple of things with you. We've started to do a little bit of filming. Obviously, it's not the Bad Ben series. I mean, you're up to Bad Ben 12, and we'll get onto that in a minute. But we have the privilege now of doing some stuff with you and Scott. So if you'd like to explain that to the listeners.
Well, we had a while ago. I'm sorry, my phone. A survey. I just got a spam call. It's a survey. I'm not going to answer. We had met with you guys a few weeks ago, and you had taken us on a little investigation of where you were broadcasting from, a little ghost hunt. And you asked me, do you want to do this? And I said, sure. I'd never done anything like that. And it was completely fascinating. And I got the idea because of the Bad Ben TV channel. Yeah. I said, we should do a show. So now, by time this broadcast, we will have had 3 or 4 of these up, and everyone just keeps getting more fascinating than the previous ones. So we've started it's called Access Paranormal Investigates, and you two are the stars, and along with Marie, and then we're just the good-looking ones that are in it.
Do you know what? I can't even argue with that one, Nigel.
Well, how it works is we're sitting here just like you see us now, and you're there live streaming out on a paranormal investigation, and we get to ask questions to the spirits that you're talking. It's just fascinating. I hope the first episode is available for free, and I don't know if you have the ability to share it to your audience there.
Yeah, we can do. Yeah.
And the subsequent episodes will be on badbentv.com, possibly more places in the future. But it's just, I mean, the last one we did, you guys were walking around for 2 hours, and it seemed like 10 minutes.
It flew.
I know, yeah.
And unfortunately, you were out in the freezing cold, but we were sitting here nice and toasty with the wood
next to the log fire.
So, but I'm glad you asked me to come back on because it'd been a little while since the last time I'd been with you.
Yeah.
And I had asked you at the time that you had requested if I could come back on, if I could bring Scott along, because Scott's been my co-star in the past 2 films, and he, I make my film series pokes a lot of fun at the paranormal and ghosts and all. And my character that I play, Tom Riley, is always poking fun at these ghosts. And one of the number one questions I get asked by my followers is, do I believe in ghosts? And I would tell them that, well, I believe when we die, we die.
Yeah.
Said, but I do believe in unexplained phenomenon, which means stuff happens that we can't explain. And that could be a variety of things. I will say, since we've been doing the Access Paranormal Investigates, there's a lot more weird out there than I thought.
Yeah.
But the reason I asked to bring Scott on was because when we first started talking, he has actually had quite a few paranormal experiences. And I don't want him, he knows I'm fond of him as a person, and like I'm fond of you guys, and I don't always like to, I like to let people know when there's credibility in things. And like in doing your broadcast, and when we filmed episodes of Access Paranormal, there were things you could have done that was showmanship, like made stuff happen, but you didn't. Because we had, I mean, let's face it, the first jaunt through the Mill Street Barracks in our first show, it wasn't as active as the second show became. And the cemetery was very active. We saw a lot of activity. So, you know, but you guys, I will say, the reason I would do your podcast is because you're credible at what you do. You're not putting on a show, pulling strings, having people jump out. You're doing a legitimate paranormal investigation. And the same with him. I've heard him tell his stories of his paranormal experiences multiple times, and the details never change. And that's how you spot a liar. If they tell a story over and over and it changes, but his stories are always the same. And I believe, I have no reason to doubt him, but his stories are fascinating, which is why I asked about bringing him on, and hopefully you give him a chance to tell him.
We're going to give him that chance now. There goes Jonathan.
Yeah, going again.
Well, if I can set this up a little bit, you know, for him to tell his story, we, you know, get a little film crew together when we're doing our films. And like he first told me about his experiences, and I was like a little bit taken aback by him. And then our cameraman, Mitch, he was in The Way In, our 7th film. He was the guy who got his head cut off. And then in Bad Ben 11, he gets his head cut off again. Well, Mitch happens to be our cameraman also. And as Scott started telling his story, we were sitting out front of my garage with a space heater because it was getting a little cool. And Mitch's back was to the woods. And he got so creeped out by this story he's about to tell that he moves over so that his back was against the wall. I guess he was expecting something to come out of the woods and drag him off. But if it did, we wanted him to keep filming. But anyway, this first story he tells, I'll set it up a little bit for him. Scott is a former Marine. That's the proper term, right? Not an ex-Marine. You're a former Marine.
Right.
And he had, you know, when you go away and you join the military, and you finally get out, you're coming home and you might have to find a place to live when you come home. A lot of times people move back in their parents' house, but their parents might be somewhere else or whatever. So when he came home, he went to stay with his father, who had a farm, right? He was at a farm.
It's like an old farmhouse, so not an active farm, but an old farmhouse.
Out in Pennsylvania. And that's when he started experiencing something unique. And from here, I'll let him tell the story.
Yes, I got a lot of stories. Some of them are like good feeling paranormal stuff. Some are bad. Some are downright weird. This one in particular was a bad one. So I was going to end up moving finally to New Jersey. My dad had a house in Pennsylvania, about 2 hours away from New Jersey. So perfect place to stop. When I moved in, they'd set me up a room in the basement of this house. And I got in, I got set up, and then after some time, I started noticing that at night there would be a really, really negative, strange feeling. And the weird part was it would start every night at 11 p.m. and it would run from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. This horrible feeling. It felt like somebody was standing in the doorway just watching you, and that they were absolutely not happy that you were there. So I got to where it was really hard to like lay down or try to go to sleep with that feeling. So I got to where every night I would sit a chair in front of the TV in the room and I would just watch TV all night. And same thing every night, right at 11, boom, the energy in the room got really weird. It felt like something was like just weighing down on you, horrible negative feeling. And that went on for a while. Eventually I was hoping I was kind of imagining it. And eventually we were coming back from dinner, my dad and my stepmom and me. And she turns around. She's like, "Do you feel anything like weird in that basement?" And I was like, "Oh, here we go." I was like, "Okay, so I'm not imagining it." She told me, she's like, "Okay, yeah, when I'm upstairs, I hear talking down there."
Hmm.
I was like, ah, it's like, okay. I was still like, well, I'm not gonna, I was like, I can't be afraid of it or anything like that. So one night after that, I decided, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna lay down. I'm just gonna go to sleep. To hell with it, basically. So I laid down, and where the bed was, it was like a twin size bed up against the wall, and right above the headboard to the right was a wooden American flag. So I'm laying in bed. The negative feeling is there as it always is, but it felt like it moved. So all of a sudden I get the feeling that it's standing right where my head is next to the
Right.
bed. I could almost feel it like it was just a presence right up against my shoulder.
Yeah.
So I rolled over, and when I looked up, I didn't see anything, but two large, it's just cracks twice, like something punched that flag. It goes boom, boom, and just two shatters and cracks in that wooden flag.
Oh, wow.
And of course, I jumped up. I grabbed the Bible in my left hand, and I grabbed a handgun in my right hand, and stood in the center of the room yelling for a minute, like, let's go, like, let's go.
He was ready to fight it.
I was like, what do you do? It's like fight or flight. So I guess I went to fight. And then after nothing happened for a couple seconds, I ran upstairs. And that was the like worst of the experiences in that house. After that, it's kind of weird. Just as suddenly as it started, one night it just stopped. It hit 11. I was ready for it, that negative feeling, and it didn't show up. After that, I never had another problem.
And did that go on that night after night for a few months, or just?
It was a few months.
Yeah.
Like every night from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. And then, like I said, one night just never came back.
Strange, isn't it?
Now, as you know, I tend to be the skeptic here.
Yeah.
But there's three things I noticed, and one of them came out of a discussion Jonathan had while we were doing one of the paranormal investigations.
Yeah.
When he described in a corner in the Mill Street Barracks, a figure, a tall figure with a hat, like a top hat. He described, now this is months before he met you guys.
Yeah.
He described that same type figure, right?
Oh,
a silhouette with a top hat?
From the sleep paralysis?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. And we'll get to the sleep paralysis story in a minute. And my roommate, Holly, who anybody that's a fan of my series has seen Holly in several of the movies.
Yeah.
Holly, months before she met him, told me a story about sleep paralysis where she awoke, could not move, and this dark figure was standing over her with like a top hat on. So tell the sleep paralysis story.
Okay, yeah. So I've had like paranormal stuff my whole life. One thing that I always had growing up, and it got like worse as I got older, was sleep paralysis. And it's one that's like it's kind of weird because it's like, is it paranormal? Is it just my brain? Like what's going on? It started out when I was younger where I would just wake up and for a few seconds I couldn't move, and it feels like you can barely breathe.
Yeah.
And all you can do is eyes, and after a few seconds you snap out of it and you can move again. And that got like progressively worse as I got older, and eventually you start like kind of seeing things, like when you're looking around, like maybe a shadow figure moving about. The worst it finally got was I was in the military at the time. I was stationed out in Hawaii, and in the barracks room I had fallen asleep in the bed with the TV on. I had left the TV on. It was on like a menu screen.
Yeah.
I woke up and I knew immediately that I couldn't move. So the sleep paralysis was happening. I couldn't move. Felt like I couldn't really breathe. I looked around for a second. I looked at the TV, and it was that menu screen, and the menu screen was casting a light on the wall next to my bed. When I turned my eyes to the left and looked at that wall, I could see the shadow on the wall of a figure standing over me that had on the top hat. And as I looked at him and I locked my eyes on him, I saw the shadow figure reach down, and I felt like I was being lifted up. And at that time, I snapped out of the sleep paralysis. I started yelling, rolled out of bed, and I ran out of the room.
Oh wow!
And
You didn't pick your flag up or your gun, your Bible or gun.
what's that?
You said you didn't pick up your Bible or your gun.
Oh, this is the funny part. With the sleep paralysis, I didn't sleep with the Bible next to me at that time. After that happened, I went and talked to the base chaplain, saying, "Is this something you've heard of? Is this like paranormal? Is it in my brain?" And he was saying that he had talked to a girl that something similar was happening to, and he told her to sleep with a Bible on or next to the bed.
Right.
And it was after that I went and I bought the Bible that I still sleep next to today. And every time, if I sleep with that Bible, I have not had sleep paralysis since.
Wow.
But there's been a couple of times where I've slept in a different house or something and I've forgotten it, and I will get it. So it's kind of strange.
So he's got on one side the Bible and on the other side his fiance. So one of these, maybe an upcoming broadcast, we can have his wife his fiance will be his wife by then on the show and see how she feels about it.
Oh, yeah. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Yeah. Just don't leave the gun next to the wife.
Right.
Yeah. No, they're both on the nightstand. I'm ready to deal with whatever comes in.
So I suppose you're a believer in the paranormal then, Scott.
Oh, absolutely. I've had
as opposed to Nigel being the skeptic.
Well, I'm a skeptic, but like I said, doing these, having done now a couple hours worth of these investigations with you, I got to tell you, it's a lot easier to be courageous when I'm sitting several thousand miles away in a heated basement and you're out there doing investigations in cold buildings and graveyards. But I've seen some things that I think even the biggest skeptics will admit has got to make you think that something's going on. I don't want to give away too much of what we've done already, but this past week in the cemetery with specifically Jamie communicating with that and how the indicator, the cat ball, responding to questioning. And anybody that might think that was a setup, go get yourself one of those cat balls and sit it in your room, and you'll see when nothing's moving it, nothing's happening. It has to be touched or moved or to illuminate. And this thing, you were having a conversation with something.
Yeah.
Oh, it was definitely. I mean, it was clear, wasn't it? It was like there. And even when I went up to the cat ball itself, we actually walked up to it, didn't we? And it stopped completely and never went again.
Right. It was like I tend to be skeptical, but I'm less skeptical the more we've done this. The only thing I'm afraid of is somebody's going to see these shows and they're going to call me or email me and say, "Hey, I got a ghost problem. Can you help?" And I'm going to say, "No, but if you buy 2 first or 3 first class tickets from the United Kingdom,
we'll be there.
I've got 3 people that will come, cat balls and all."
Oh, certainly. If you advertise by that, we don't mind, Nigel. Actually, we could meet up with you and Scott, and you could come with us and film it.
That would be awesome.
Well, actually, we had discussed, one day, because when we film the show, it's us sitting here and you're there out walking around doing your thing. And we discussed the possibility at some point in the future we'll find a location and we'll do the walking, and you can sit somewhere comfortable and instruct us. And
And
we
laugh
talked
while we
about
take it.
bringing Mitch, who's, like I said, our cameraman,
Yeah.
and he's a bit of a scaredy cat. So to have him there,
Like
I
Jamie.
said, I said he won't go, and Scott says, "Don't tell him, just bring him."
Just tell him you're filming.
Yeah, nice one, Scott.
Just tell him what we're filming, and oh, by the way, this was the scene of a mass murder where we're filming.
Bad Ben goes on a ghost hunt.
I like it. I like your style.
Well, you know, over the holidays, one of the things I do is I offer to film these custom videos that I would film for people, wishing them a Merry Christmas. And
Yeah.
they would buy their
Yeah.
friends and family members these videos that I would record. Well, the funny thing is that about half of them had the name of Ben. So I'm sitting there, yeah.
No.
So
Crazy.
it's just weird saying, "Hey Ben, this is Tom Riley from Bad Ben." So
I know. That it mixes me up as well. I get confused easily. Anyway, I mean, poor Scott. I think he's been called everything but Scott.
he's been called Scott. You've called me Tom, Ben, and Nigel. Every fourth time you get it right. So
Yeah. He's like that all the
Oh,
time.
I'm like that with everybody, even in work. I'm like that.
His dementia's catching up with him, you see.
Well, I can't remember that. Yeah, But yeah, I'm terrible for names. So Scott, if I call you anything but Scott, just go with it.
Yeah.
I always do. I don't mind. You can call me whatever.
No,
mean,
don't
Don't say that to him.
Don't say whatever, because I'll be calling you whatever next.
call me anything but late to dinner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we've been enjoying. I mean, we've done. Is it now three of them now, haven't we? With the filming with you, and the one we've done in the cemetery, I think that has excelled more than what we were. I mean, we love Mill Street Parks. We've always loved Mill Street Parks.
Yeah.
We know that something will happen there. I mean, Scott, you were there with us through the power of the internet, and you seen what will happen that night with the cat balls, and you know, how did you feel? Because I think that was your very first investigation, even though you were sitting near a log fire in Nigel's house. You know, how did you feel about actually being there, watching us?
It was awesome. I love the way you guys do things, and then especially the cat ball thing. It's just it's really neat to me to see it, because there's the way they respond to questions. Like, it's not like they just keep going off. It'll sit there and you're asking questions, then when you get to one, it'll go off, and then when you ask more questions, it won't. And it's there's just no way that ball going off could align that well with those questions all the time. And then there's times it doesn't go off at all. So I thought, being on an actual investigation, that was one of the coolest things I've seen yet, as far as being able to get a response from something that's there.
I think it's in a lot of ways too. Like, when you watch a horror movie, you're not there. You're in the safety of your own home. But if done right, you become immersed in it, and you begin to feel the creep factor.
Yeah.
And we now have up 4 episodes of Access Paranormal Investigates. And the first episode was in Mill Street Barracks.
Yeah.
The second episode was a continuation of that. And the creep factor got a little more involved, because there was you call it a cot, we call it like a crib over here. And that we actually have, if people go back and watch that episode, they'll see that we kept seeing the shadow.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
We captured it, and because I'm such an outstanding editor, I was able to slow it down and show it. And I kept saying, "Did you move your hand in front of the light?"
No.
And you said no. Now the odd thing about that was, if it was a hand going in front of the light, it would have matched the shadows of everything else, because it was the same light.
Yeah.
So this, I don't know what it was, and it happened a couple times. In the third episode, it's the first half of the cemetery. We were going with you and you were communicating with it. And I forget if it was the third or the fourth. It was the beginning of the third episode where him and I are sitting here and you're out there at the chapel and we heard a voice.
That's right. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
It was twice too, and it was right after he asked questions, and it never happened again or before.
And we became suspect of, is it a matter of because of all the electronic equipment we're using?
Yeah.
You're using a phone, we're using a phone, you have the spirit talker, that it might be something that you being there don't hear, because you at the moment didn't hear it. Because we asked, is there wind? Is there anything? And you pointed the camera up at the trees and there was no wind at all. But we definitely heard what sounded like a garbled voice. And, you know, with the spirit world being using EMT, is it EMF?
EMF,
electromagnetic frequency. Electronic equipment could pick it up. So while you're there live streaming, you won't hear it. But you're live streaming to us through electronics. And here there's a camera and a monitor in front of us. And we were just curious if it's a possibility the monitor picked up something that you didn't in response to, you know, the frequency.
It happened to us in the past, hasn't
it? It has, yeah.
It has happened to us in the past where we've been doing an investigation and we've recorded it on either on the phone or on a recorder, digital recorder. And when we've actually played that back, we've heard voices and we've heard sounds that we did not hear when we've done the investigation.
That's right, yeah.
So it can happen.
One time, I mean, hopefully one day you'll be able to come across it. We had a studio in Mill Street Barracks, and we had a group in. A group, am I all right to name them? Yeah. Am I okay to name the group?
Yeah.
We had a group in called Dark Territory, who were really good friends of ours, and we were interviewing them. And just before we were interviewing, we were doing what you were doing, just having a little bit of a chat and that. And we had headphones on, the microphones were next to us, and as clear as anything, wasn't it? Yeah. Hello.
Over the headphones.
Over the headphones, and all of us heard it. Now there was 5 of us in that room, and all 5 of us heard it through our headphones. Not one of us was talking. We were just sitting there, weren't we, sorting things out when that came through. And then Sean Kenner, he's the main person. He went out onto the balcony and was checking the balcony to make sure there was nobody out there. Now there was only us in the building, and right through the headphones again was laughter, like a dark, like strange kind of laughter. And what annoyed me is I didn't start recording, you know, because like when we do the podcast, you go, right, okay, I'm recording now, blah blah blah, and away we go. If I'd have had the recording on, would we have captured that? But the funny thing was, again, is it happened again, didn't it? We were just sitting there, and Jonathan was sitting opposite me, and I was sitting where I could use all the mixers and everything else. Yeah. And I thought he'd said Jamie, and I went, "What do you want, Jonathan?" And he went, "What?"
I was like, "What are you talking about?"
I said, "You've just said Jamie through the headphones." I said, "You're trying to wind me up or something?" He went, "I haven't said anything." He said, "I was just sitting here," but it was as clear as anything again through the headphones.
So. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What I was going to say is you were right there, Nigel, where you were saying about they were using the electronics, you know, like you were saying about the EMF. Yeah. And it's quite logical what you were saying then, is that's what they could have been doing at that time.
It could be the electronics could be picking up something that we just naturally don't hear until we play it back. And I mean, I remember you telling me at the first, you know, back to you saying, hearing your name, before the night we shot our first episode of Access Paranormal Investigates, your son was with you taking some behind the scenes photos. And when you first walked in, before we started filming, you heard Jamie, something, you heard your son and asked if he called you. And Jonathan, didn't you tell me that quite often you guys hear Jamie?
Yeah, it happens quite a lot in Mill Street. I think because I mean, we've been there for over 10 years, isn't it? Over
Yeah,
10 years
yeah.
we've been going there. But Jamie's got quite a connection with the building as well.
Well,
So,
did you ever wonder if these spirits want to communicate? Like, do they want to be heard, or do you think that you're irritating them and they're
no, because I've never had anything bad. And like my father, my dad was based in Mill Street Barracks. He actually was based there, and my mum used to go and meet him there. So, and I've actually got a photograph of my dad on the parade at Mill Street as well. So there's that strong connection I've got with the actual building. So, and I always go in every building, not just Mill Street, but I go in every building and I always say it as well, with the greatest respect to those people who are in there.
That's what I was going to mention, that you're always really respectful. You see, if say the rules of the paranormal world are that if you're respectful to the spirits, they're respectful to you. But if you're nasty, you could garner a nasty response.
Yeah.
Well, had I gone into this before meeting you guys, I probably would have been getting my ass kicked regularly, because I would just say something wrong and wind up getting a scratch across the face or something. But no, you are very respectful when you go in. And I know that if I say this using the logic of a person living, so it's tough to make sense of it as if I was a spirit, but I would know that as a living person, if I wanted to be heard by somebody that couldn't hear me, I think that the way you set it up is so respectful that I would think I could trust those people to make my presence known. And that's what I see going on. So I feel when we do these things, I'm fascinated by them. And I will tell you, I feel a bit like the outsider, because I think I'm more skeptical than the four of you, meaning Jamie, Jonathan, Marie, and Scott. And but I watch that all interact, and it's fascinating.
But you were saying you're an outsider. If you think about it now, we've all been outsiders. It's just through experience that we've come to terms with what happens. I mean, we stay calm. Sometimes we're frightened. I've got to admit, sometimes we do get scared. I mean, it didn't bother me on Saturday. I mean, I felt quite comfortable on, the film. No, it was Friday, wasn't it? On the film, and it didn't affect me at all.
Some parts of it for me were quite eerie, though. Some parts were okay, and some parts I didn't like where we were.
Well, when I lost my paranormal virginity, the first when we recorded that first night, that's not part of the show. There was a lot of communicating going on there. But it was the second time when we actually started filming the episode. In the first and second episode, I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you think that the responses coming through the spirit box were a little more aggressive?
Yes, definitely. From that first night, I noticed that, like you said, that first night it was more inquisitive,
congenial.
A lot lighter. And then there was another night that we filmed, and it did seem like all the responses were more aggressive, maybe a little more anger in the responses. So,
and then the cemetery episode, it kind of went back to more of a congenial, a friendly. I don't know if friendly is the right word, but a lighter tone, not so aggressive. But it almost seemed to me like in the case of placing the cat ball onto the foundation of that former chapel, it almost seemed as if there was a desire to communicate coming from that side.
Well, there's probably not been anybody in. I mean, we go in. We like we said, don't we? We always go in with a bit of a respect. I mean, especially in a cemetery, because you've got to be respectful, because the people who are laid to rest there, you've still got families who are alive. So you've got two things you've got to remember. You've got to respect those who have passed, and you've got to remember those whose relatives are still around. That's why when we done the second part, we went up to where my great granddad was buried.
Yeah.
So we were still keeping that respect, but it was nice to show people, look, we're not just filming willy-nilly. We're actually filming where my family are as well. So we were just trying to show that, trust us, we're not here to disturb them in a nasty way at all. We just want to try and communicate. And there's no better place, because you've got a captive audience, and I mean that in a respectful way as well. That it's in a place where there's a lot of people at rest. So if they want to, they can communicate with us. If they don't want to, that's absolutely fine as well. We just want to like have a connection between our world and their world.
Yeah.
If you'd like to join our Facebook community, why not search for Access Paranormal Radio Podcast? There's always something very spooky going on the Access Paranormal Facebook page.
I mean, I don't know what you think about this, Nigel and Scott. I've always said, where people say we live on different planes and different worlds and stuff, in different times. What if we're the ghosts? What if we're spirits now, and people are trying to communicate with us?
Well, there was that movie with Nicole Kidman,
The Others.
Yeah.
And the twist at the end of that film totally blew my mind. I didn't even see it coming. Similar to The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Two
brilliant films.
But yeah, are we in a snow globe sitting on some superior being's desk? All of us? I mean, who knows? There's under our fingernails, sometimes they say there's an entire universe that exists, a microscopic world. So who knows? We could be sitting here in a room that in another plane, this might not even be a house.
Yeah,
this
that's right.
a field or something. You don't know. And I like to think that there is more to our existence than just being born and dying, and then it ends. I'd like to think there's more, and I'm hoping that more that comes after we pass kind of allows us to have all the answers. So it's a possibility that, spirits, I've always assumed, and maybe this is from the portrayal on film and television, that they haven't crossed over fully to the other side. They're like a plane in between. But I'd like to think that when I pass, I'm going to run to the other side, because the last thing I want to do is I'm laying on my deathbed, everything goes black, and I wake up to hear Jamie talking, saying, "Hey, be respectful. Can you say something to us now?" And then I say, "Oh my God, does he know it's me?" And all of a sudden, Jonathan says, "Nigel just came up on the spirit box." So I'm going to run to the light.
I love it.
Fell to that one, is it? But I mean, my way of thinking of the other side is like, on air, our parents move on, and we're still here. But they were with us at the time, but they've moved on to the next plane. We'll move on to the next plane, and then we'll meet them again. But that plane will keep moving on until I don't know how many planes there are. But if you think of it like that, people are saying, why don't you get in touch with cavemen? Because they've moved on. Their ancestors, they're thousands of years away from when we were here. If you look at any ghost paranormal investigator or anything like that, you never hear them going beyond, say, the 1800s, really. A lot of them only get to the 1800s, 1700s. You get the odd ones who go back further, but you don't hear of many. You might hear of the Romans, you know, where people have seen the Romans, but they've never communicated with the Romans. It's like a video recording.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got more chance of communicating with someone from, say, the late 1800s into the 1900s, because that's within our span.
Do you think that has something to do also with like a language barrier? Like when we're communicating with spirits, if they still understand our language, do you think maybe it has something to do with, if you go back that far, they have no idea what you're saying to them? Like,
true, yeah.
It's a possibility, yeah. We've always wondered about that.
Could it also be the time factor? Because, you know, if time is, I think, something that's relevant to our dimension that we live in. So when you know, biblically speaking, when it said, I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, time is not really a relevant factor in death. No. Now, if these are spirits, and I'm just speculating here, but if these are spirits that have passed from this world, but not fully crossed over into the afterlife, so they're sitting there in a plane that has no real time, and eventually they either figure it out or they move on. So when we're talking 1800s, to us, that's 100, 200 years ago, depending on what part of 1800s you're in. To them, it could have been 10 minutes ago until they actually crossed over. So, you know, further back in time, 1700s, 1600s, 1500s, the further back in time, the greater the chance they've had to discover it's time for them to cross over.
Right. But if you think about time, time continues. We just pass through it.
Yeah.
You know, we're just a fraction of that time, but it never ends. We just pass in a certain time and goes to a certain time, but it continues. It's like, if you think about stars, they say when you look at the star, you're looking at light from millions of years ago.
Well, you know, they say that if, like when this James Webb telescope that launched recently, started returning photos in the past couple months, when they look back to the beginnings of the universe, what they're saying may or may not be there anymore, but they're saying if you went like 65 million light years away with a telescope powerful enough to see Earth, you would see dinosaurs.
Oh, wow. If it's beyond your imagination, that, you know, when you think like that.
I mean, there are stars out there we're looking at now that are suns that burned out billions of years ago, possibly. And their light's still reaching us. So if it would be amazing, I would think that if you could travel, I mean, I don't know. It's so much I've got the biggest head of the four of us here, but I can't wrap my head around it. It's just too much to
It's a lot.
Well, going back to the paranormal investigations, and we've done, is it 4 with you now? If you think about when we were in Mill Street, everything was nice and calm and relaxed, and we were picking things up. Although the second part was a bit more, but that could be just like, look, we've had enough here. It's time for you to leave, and obviously we didn't. And if you think about it, in the graveyard, you get people passing through in the daytime, day in, day out, everything like that, but not many of a night time. But when it's more of a night time, there's not as many people in there, so there's more chance of you getting a communication, or more chance of a spirit communicating with you, because at daytime there's so much distraction with daylight. You know, a bird will fly past you, you'll see that, trees will blow, and you're distracted with movement. And for night time, once it goes dark, you can relax more. Do you understand what I mean? So the communication can be a bit more, it can be there, it can happen.
That makes me wonder, why does it seem like all paranormal investigation shows happen in the dark or at night?
I honestly believe it's because you can concentrate more, because there's no distractions. You know, like, if you remember the doll you had the other week, the same as what Jonathan's got, and it's moving, you're going to be looking at that doll. Or if you stand up, I'm looking at you going, I'm not concentrating on a ghost hunt. Of a night time, if it's pitch black, there's nothing there to distract you.
Maybe this is something that we should look at in the future, right?
What, do a ghost hunt in the day?
And do a ghost hunt. Find somewhere that's going to be quiet and do a ghost hunt in the day.
I mean, I understand what you said. Graveyards don't typically have anybody in them at night. And usually if they do, they're up to no good, present company accepted. But like daytime even, there's not a whole lot that goes on in most graveyards. I mean, there might be a funeral, there might be a burial that day or something, but I don't know how many people go through
Well, we know of a derelict graveyard, which it's right out in the middle of nowhere. What we could do one day, if you want to, is we could go up there. We could do a ghost hunt in the daytime. Then when it goes back, go back in in complete darkness and see if there's a difference in the communication.
Yeah,
awesome.
That would be, we would be doing our own research.
Yeah, because
so we could go, say, an hour before it goes completely dark, do the ghost hunt, and then continue the ghost hunt into the darkness and see if there's a difference.
Yeah.
You know, it's also a possibility it's us more than it is the spirits, because we always associate light with safety and comfort, like the warmth of the sun, or the, you know, you're not scared walking into an alley when it's broad daylight, but you are more scared when you're walking down there in the darkness. So it's also a possibility that our perceptions are fine-tuned tonight, not so much that they could be. There could be someone sitting between us.
I didn't want to tell you, Nigel.
Well, our focus, but hey, I think about this. When I walk down here into this basement, it's dark. I flip on the lights and I go about my day working. If I had a flashlight, there's stuff in the shadows that gives you a different feeling. And if I happen to be down here right now and power went out, and assuming I didn't just have a whole house generator installed, say everything went out and it was completely dark, the first thing I would do is either look for a flashlight, use the light on my phone, or move to a door to light. So maybe it's us, it's not them, but that would be a fascinating experiment, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, what we'll do is we'll look at that, because it's about a 2-hour drive from here, so we'll have a go at that. It's an amazing graveyard as well. It's small, but it's big enough to do like a really good paranormal investigation in there.
Now, what do you mean by derelict? It's been abandoned, or you mean
Been abandoned? Yeah. And I've been there. I've done an investigation there. Me and Marie went there a couple of years back. I don't want to give too much away for you, because when we get there and we tell you what it is, then you'll be more interested in it. Whoa, you know.
There's another more local one as well.
Where?
In Liverpool.
Oh, we've got to go. I mean, if you love cemeteries, Scott, you're going to love the one in Liverpool as well. We'll take you on a journey to there as well. So I think there's going to be a few cemeteries on this series, but there is a very good one in Liverpool.
You know, my roommate Holly has heard your voice and seen the show, and she says, "Are they from Liverpool?" And I said, "Well, they're nearby." She goes, "They sound like they're from Liverpool." I said, "How the hell do you know, other than watching like documentaries on the Beatles? How the hell do you know it's somebody from Liverpool?"
From Liverpool.
So I guess
I actually work in Liverpool itself.
Right.
So, and I'm going to ask him, where I work, that was built on the old docks of Liverpool. And people say, a person who was working where I worked turned around and said, there's something in here, but I feel uncomfortable in certain areas. So, I mean, we have done a ghost hunt in there.
Yeah.
But I can always get us in there to do a ghost hunt, you know, for the show anyway. So that'll be an interesting one.
Well, hopefully this show continues to pick up speed, because I got to tell you pick up steam, because I got to tell you the comments I've gotten from my followers have all been positive.
Brilliant.
Like last night I was doing a live and people were saying, oh, I watched episode 2 and it was fascinating, and where'd you find these guys? And I said, well, I bailed them out of prison. And I said they were just people that a couple years ago, when Bad Ben was rolling along, they invited me on their podcast twice. And the third time is when we came up with the idea for doing this. And, but they're just fascinated by it. And somebody said, this is better than any of the ghost hunting shows on TV. And I said, well, where'd you watch it? They said, on TV. I said, so it's not better than anyone on TV. We're the best one on TV. So they liked it. Hopefully we're looking for ideas in 6 months to a year that it's rolling along.
Well, we have got, I mean, Scott's going to love the experiments we've got coming up in some of the episodes as well. In fact, we might get you to do it, Scott, from where you are.
That would be even more interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So, and Nigel can ask the questions, and it'd be interesting to see what happens as well.
One of the things where I say, like, I tend to be the biggest skeptic of us all, is that I've noticed that in these communications, I get the least amount of response from anything. He, on the other hand, and it hasn't been lost on the fans, they say, man, those spirits love Scott, because he said things and stuff respond and different things. And plus the experiences he's had in life. They're thinking that Scott is the guy they from over here, at least, that they're liking the most.
But maybe that's because Nigel is a skeptic.
Yeah.
So it's like if somebody said to me, oh, I don't believe, I just think, oh, I can't be bothered. I'm not going to try and explain something if you're not interested. Do you know what I mean? Or you're not.
Well, that's what I was getting at, that I get less responses when we call out, because we have been curious that if us over here calling out through your phone over there, if they're going to respond to us. And they haven't responded to me, because they may see, as you say, that this guy tends to be a skeptic. Now I'm open-minded, but yeah, I'm more skeptical of this group, whereas he is more receptive to it, and he said things and had responses that have come over that have shown up. So it might be because of his bubbly personality.
Well, it could also be because they've watched your Bad Ben movies. And you think
Me.
you're taking the out of them. Maybe they're going, well, you know. Who knows, Nigel? Who knows?
If you'd like to join our Facebook community, why not search for Access Paranormal Radio Podcast? There's always something very spooky going on the Access Paranormal Facebook page.
But Scott, you're going to, I mean, it's great that they're responding with you, because if you think about it as well, we're in the UK, thousands of miles away from you. I don't know whereabouts you are in America, sorry. But you know, they're still responding to you, even though there's that distance. So again, Nigel, like you said, electronic comes into itself there.
Yeah, definitely.
Because if we can communicate with you from, I mean, we're sitting in my house now, you're sitting over there, and there's no big gap between us. We're talking to each other as if we're in the living room, in the same room.
Yeah.
So maybe they can do that, but they've been able to do it a lot longer than us. If you understand what I'm saying there.
Yeah, well, there's no delay. I mean, and it's instantaneous. And I hear your voice coming out of that television, and you hear my voice coming out of your computer.
Yeah.
So it's it just goes without saying, I guess, that the sound that we're hearing, they're hearing. And we did something that I thought was very interesting, was a suggestion Jonathan had on the third episode and bled over into the fourth episode. You know, I went and got the app for my phone, the Spirit Talker app.
Yeah.
And Jonathan suggested that we turn it on here at the same time yours is on there.
Yeah.
Now, there was actually, I can't think of the exact specifics. I'd have to go back and look at the episode, but there was actually some relevant statements coming out of our Spirit Talker
Yeah.
and your Spirit Talker at the same time. It was almost as if there was a conversation going on there.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
They were linking together, weren't they?
Yeah. It
Yeah,
was.
sometimes link up. Like there's just no way that it would. The coincidence is like too great that you guys like Spirit Talker and ours would say the same word at the same time. Like I think it was 19.
19 it was.
And you guys went off 19, ours went off 19.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The odds.
And I mean,
one time we're starting to walk in a direction, it didn't say turn right.
They mentioned
Yeah,
yeah.
and ours said turn right.
That was
Right.
strange.
Yeah, that's when you said something about. I mean, I think I turned the camera to myself and made a joke, and you said he's in the middle of a cemetery and he's telling jokes. So we're used to it. But I mean, we've got plenty of experiments and ideas moving on, and what we'd like you to do as well is come up with experiments for us to do.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean sitting me in the middle of a cemetery on my own for an hour, because that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea, that, Jamie.
Do you have access to explosives?
I refuse to comment.
There's two locations we've been talking about here. One is this up the road about 10 minutes from here is a place called the Abbott House, which was a bed and breakfast. And they said that a child passed away in that house that was 8 years old, and he was mistreated. And he used to be forced to sleep under the stairs, which always reminds me of Harry Potter. But there's I've been in that house because years ago I used to have a real estate license, and the place was for sale, and I went in there and I saw that actual room. But they would the story there was that when families would come in or people would come into that place, if they had a child the same age or younger of that child that passed away at age 8, they would see the ghost of a child. So that's one location I've thought about I'd like to get us into. The other is 10 minutes the other direction in a city called Ocean City, New Jersey, which does sit right on the ocean, is a place called the Flanders Hotel, which is well over 100 years old. Atlantic City also has some structures that are over, which Atlantic City is 10 minutes in a third direction from here. So we'll find some interesting places to get us into and get us into trouble.
The first one you said then, the Abbott, was it Abbott?
The Abbott
House.
I've heard of that before.
You know the doll you've got? What rocks? The rocking doll.
Right.
Take that with you.
Yeah.
And well, we'll get some cat balls too.
Yeah.
Try it all out. Take the Spirit Talker. Try it all. See whatever works. When I went in there, I walked in the house before anybody was there. I was showing the house to a potential buyer. And when I'm in there, all of a sudden, I start hearing music and a light came on in a room. And as it turns out, they were set on a timer. Nobody at the office told me this was set up there. And so it scared the hell out of me. So for a moment, I wasn't a skeptic, and but then I found out it was set to a timer, and I guess it's to make the place seem inhabited, so that
yeah,
breaking in. But it's a fascinating place. It's like 3 stories tall, I think, and they've got a large dining room. I'll reach out to them because it's changed owners several times since that was 25 years ago. I'm talking about.
yeah.
So it's changed owners like at least 2 times since then. And one of my broadcasts, or actually one of my fans, contacted me through social media to tell me, "Have you ever heard of the Abbott House? I know the people that run that." So we'll see.
Brilliant.
Super. Sounds good.
Yeah, we've got quite a few locations in mind. We're going to be taking you to a Roman village.
Oh.
Yeah. It's the remains of a Roman village. A church in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a field. A chapel. These are all in Wales. What we're going to do is we'll go up there and spend a weekend up there, and what we'll do is if it's okay with you is we'll film these while we're up there, because it's like about 100 miles away, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to take you around them would be fantastic. I mean, it's lovely up there.
Well, so far you haven't delivered a dud yet, so.
Well, only Jonathan.
Yeah.
So,
Terrible, isn't it?
yeah. Well, let's change the subject, Nigel and Scott. Let's go on to the Bad Ben movies, because I mean, when we spoke to you, I think you were on Bad Ben 8, and you're now coming up to Bad Ben 12.
Well, we're starting in the spring on Bad Ben 12. We just finished 11. We finished it actually 5 nights before it premiered.
5. Well, I'm not surprised, because I mean, we done our first filming with you on the Friday, and it was out on the Sunday.
Right. People always ask me what was my favorite film. The first one, because it was so unknown, I didn't know what was going to be the response to it. Looking back on it, that was my favorite. I liked them all, obviously. I mean, what kind of a producer would I be if I said I didn't like them? But the 7th one, The Haunted Highway, was was a lot of fun to do, and fans liked. But to me, the final 20 minutes of Bad Ben 11, Undead, were some of the probably 20 of the best minutes of the series, because a lot of stuff happened. It was just it was a lot of fun, and how it ended. Scott gets beheaded, not Scott. Mitch gets beheaded. Zombies are closing in on us, and we get. And this is a spoiler, but it's been out long enough now that if someone hasn't seen it, too bad. We get sucked up into an alien spaceship at the end of this one. But it was a lot of fun, those last 20 minutes. And I didn't realize till I'm putting it together and I'm looking at it, I'm saying, man, this is some action-packed moments here. But it was just, we got to shoot in a zoo, and in this one, and they have, I had a fan contact me. We had been shooting for a very short period of time, and a fan contacts me and says, "Oh, my son and I love your movies, and if you ever want to film in a zoo, I run a zoo." So I said, "Yeah." So we went up there, 4 or 5 times?
Yeah, it was
probably
quite a few.
And that was a lot of fun, because they have lions and tigers and bears, all kinds of stuff in. And I mean, he held a tarantula,
Scorpion.
Well, did we not take he held a scorpion, and a possum, and they actually have a rescue fox that they named Nigel Fox.
Nigel Fox. I'm a huge animal lover, so I'm a bit jealous of you going to a zoo, because that'd be
We're actually, all my animals, you might even hear them running around upstairs in here. All our animals are rescues, but yeah, I mean, there's so many animals out there that need a home. It's nice when you can
Definitely.
rescue something.
Yeah.
There's a place about 15 minutes from here. Everything's 10 or 15 minutes from here, just so you know. But there's a place about 15 minutes from here called the Funny Farm, in which this woman has a rescue where she's got over 600 animals.
Oh,
Wow.
Horses, cows, sheep, dogs, cats, everything. It's unbelievable. And it's a nonprofit. It's all through donations and grants that she does this, but that's all she does.
Wow.
It's called the Funny Farm.
Superb.
Brilliant idea. Brilliant.
But yeah, Bad Ben, I mean, we plan on, I always tell the fans, if you keep watching, I'll keep making.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think that probably a logical place this is going to end is going to be around film 15, but that's not the end of filmmaking. That's just the end of, that'll put the Bad Ben series to rest. And then hopefully by that time, some millionaire producer says, you know, I want to take a big budget and remake Bad Ben. And I'll say, show me the money, baby. Show me.
That's right, yeah.
I don't even have to be involved.
In your Bad Ben series, do you ad lib sometimes?
All the time.
All the time.
I consider myself one of the luckiest guys in the world stumbling upon this guy. He had actually been here one time a couple years ago in a work capacity. He worked for a company that was working on my heating and air conditioning. And then he comes in and he leaves. And next time his company was here, they told me, they said, oh, he went to pursue his love of acting. And I said, well, does he know I told him I made films. And, but a couple years passed, 2 years, maybe 3 years. And on Facebook, of all things, I see him comment in this local actors room. And I messaged him and I said, did you used to work at this place? He said, yeah. I said, I know you. And at that time, I was just preparing to make the 10th film. And it turns out he lives, again, 10 minutes away from here. And
a film comes into thought.
And I found that I've used scripts in a couple of the films normally that involve other actors. Yeah. But with him, the reason I make these so fast is I got to use him while I got him, because somebody is going to snatch him up one day for, big Hollywood production.
Yeah.
But the beauty of working with him is I can tell him what I picture in a scene, and then we just act it out. There's a scene in Bad Ben 10. Now, don't listen to this because you've heard it before, and I don't want to give you a big head. There's this.
But he's got the big hair, so you might as well.
Well, I do. It's enormous. You should see. Let me tell you something. Have I showed you this? I don't know if you can see this on here. Can you see there's a letter F right there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know what that stands for? The brand of glasses, I shit you not, is called Fatheads.
Oh, we've got shops over here called Fat something. I can't remember what they're called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got hats. If I'm not going to walk off screen and grab a hat, but it's a XXX and it fits me just perfect. I was in Puerto Rico for work for 6 weeks, going back 25 years. And a former New York Mets baseball player had opened up a hat store there. He was from Puerto Rico. He lived there, and he opened up a hat store. And he says, would you you looking for a hat? I said, you don't have a hat in this store that'll fit my head. And he says, oh, I bet we do. I said, if you got a hat that'll fit my head, I'll buy it. Well, guess what? He didn't have a hat that fit my head. So, in fact, I was in the military, and those hats they wear that are long, not the round hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when I would have to put one of them on my head, it looked like a canoe sitting on the moon. So I'm just not meant for hats, which I guess that's why I don't have any hair either. So
Well, the strange thing is the filming we did in the graveyard. That's the first time I'd ever wore any kind of hat.
yeah, well, it looked
That's
like
how
you
cold it was.
looked cold. Oh, and I was saying in the 10th film, there's a scene where in the premise of the 10th film is I'm dead. And in the 10th, and he's trying to locate what happened to me or figure out what happened to me. And he goes in the woods, and it's a simple, and it was an ad-lib scene. It's a simple ad-lib scene where he's looking for a grimoire, like a spell book, to try to figure out how to bring me back. And he walks into the woods and he looks up. Am I embarrassing you?
Go for
And he says, he's calling out to Bad Ben, who's the Jersey Devil in our folklore here, looking for me. And the way he said, and this was all ad-lib, and the way he looks up and he says, Ben, I know you miss your friend. I'm sitting there, and when you're filming stuff, you might not notice, but when you're editing it, you get to watch it in quiet, peace and quiet.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this, and I'm saying, that was really good how he did that. And it was just, it was believable in a make-believe world. It was believable. And that's why I know I got to use him before he gets snatched up. And then in the 11th film, there's a scene where we're at the zoo, and him and I are bantering back and forth, and he just blows up on me. And I got to tell you, I knew that was the plan. He just blows up on me like, no, listen. And I got to admit, I was a little scared of him.
Just make sure you keep hold of him, Nigel.
Yeah, I do. I carry mace with me in case I got to spray him down.
Yeah. No, you got to keep him because he's part of the paranormal stuff now. You can't let him go.
Yeah.
Well,
He'll always be around.
I suspect that, one day after he's up on stage getting slapped in the face by Will Smith, I'll be able to see that. I don't know how familiar the UK is with that joke.
Oh,
Yeah.
We know all that.
We've seen it, yeah.
Well, one day when he's walking off stage with an award, I'm going to call him, and he probably won't take my call. But if I do get through to him, I'm going to say, hey, Scott, are you interested in doing Bad Ben 27?
Or
Brilliant.
what we do is when Scott goes to Hollywood, he has to take his friends with him.
That's right. I mean, I'll clean up. I'll empty trash. I'll do whatever you want.
We could probably do some ghost hunting out in Hollywood.
Speaking of, and this is off subject, but speaking of Will Smith, the film Emancipation just came out on Apple TV.
Just watched it. Brilliant.
And well, my best friend, I'm so proud of him. And let me tell you what I think. This is preaching for a moment. One of the things that gets you ahead in life is if you can genuinely be happy for someone else's success, and not jealous, but be happy for someone. That's going to take you personally, give you growth as a person. Because last night I felt like my brother, or I don't have any children, but like a child of mine, accomplished something amazing, because Matt, my best friend, is a nurse, and he was the COVID enforcement officer on that film. He was the least popular guy there because every day he was swabbing your nose or making you wear masks or something. And that film had a hell of a time getting made. They had a hurricane postpone them, COVID and all that. But just out of curiosity, I said, I wonder if he's in the credits. So I play the credits, and boom, there was his name, Matthew Klemick, RN. And I felt a moment of unbelievable pride in him for doing that. And he's worked on 2 television series now. Doom Patrol is a DC Comics made into a series on HBO. And he was in something in Marge Go Large. It was a film he was COVID gave him his job and got him in a Will Smith film. And the unfortunate thing is, with that event that happened, it almost makes you wonder, like, that film Emancipation could very well be up for an Academy Award, but I'm wondering if it's going to be shunned because of that event.
I don't know whether you've seen it or not, but it's a fantastic film.
Can I be honest with you?
You haven't?
I fast forwarded to the credits because it looked so freaking depressing to me.
It was quite tense. The whole film was tense right the way through, but it was one of them ones. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Will Smith after what he did. I think that was very disrespectful, but his acting in that was absolutely brilliant. You know, you can't take that away from him.
Well, you know, I know it's off topic of the paranormal, but who knows? The devil could have been in him that night. But I will say this, that he was put in a spot where his wife is there, somebody's making fun of his wife, and he looks over at his wife, and she was disturbed by it, and he reacted. And people's comments have been, it was a joke. He's a comedian. Well, you know what? Maybe comedians shouldn't just be given a free pass to say anything they want under the fact that it's a joke. What if, what is that? Is it impetigo? The thing where they have different colors?
Yeah.
It affects mainly darker people because, I mean, light-skinned people have it too, but it's not as noticeable. What if he had said, I mean, she has her head shaved because of she had alopecia. What if there was a person there with impetigo and he said, when's she going to be in the next 101 Dalmatians? Is that a joke that should be appropriate? So, while I think he lacked the self-control, I think maybe the comedian, and I like Chris Rock, don't get me wrong, but maybe he was incorrect in making that joke also.
They were both incorrect in their own ways. But I mean, if I said something like that on air to you, or you said something to me and I was a bit upset with it, I'd say it off air, because if you think about what happened there, he had millions of people watching that. So his career, well, his sponsors, he lost a lot of money with that.
Well, they actually pushed back the release of Emancipation because of that.
All right.
It was supposed to be out sooner, but anyway. And if I say something offensive to you, Jamie, you got a long way to go before you can smack me, buddy.
I've got the screen. I can just pretend.
But you know, back to the paranormal for a second. This is the time of year I always do recall one story that struck me as odd, and I apologize if I'm repeating this from a previous broadcast.
It's okay.
But we have these things around this time of year. This week I'll be doing it, where we go and on family members' graves we put grave blankets. They're evergreen trees. They look like a wreath, but you lay them on a grave. And it's just to show, respect for the dead at the Christmas holiday. And so there's this cemetery around here up in Port Republic. It's one of the older cemeteries in the area. And it's very Christmassy looking because there's a church with a high steeple, well lit up at night. And I went there in December of 2016 because it was right after the first Bad Ben was released. And I went to put a grave blanket out, or grave blankets, because I have 6 relatives up there. And when I go in this cemetery, it's very early in the morning. It's foggy. It's raining. And I remember I had to, this is horrible to say, but I had to relieve myself because it'd been a long ride and I'd been drinking a lot of coffee. And so I went over near a bush. Just so anybody watching, by the way, is this PG-13, this show? I mean,
we always put it for children, not for children anyway.
Okay, you can bleep me out if you have to. I didn't have to take a shit. That's what I want to say. I had to do number one. So I go over to this bush, and I'm not peeing on anybody's grave. Don't worry. But in the distance is the section of the cemetery that's like over 100 years old, 150 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I see all these white things going like this. It scared the hell out of me. And then I realized it was deer, the white-tailed deer, where the cemetery.
Oh, right, yeah. Tails.
So I get back in my van and I go to pull out of the cemetery, and you pull through this like half wall, and it's not a busy road, but I look left, I look right. Actually, I look right, I look left, and I look right again to pull out. It's pouring rain. And here is this woman, like with an Indian blanket, Native American, like blanket around her head. And I just looked that way and I swore there was nobody there. And normally I would ask somebody like that if they needed a ride. She didn't get asked if she needed a ride because I was at a cemetery, appeared out of nowhere. But I always think of that this time of year because this is when it happened.
Right. Well, I remember years ago, Johnson's just disappeared because he's pinched it. Yeah, he's having a nice drink. So he's returned. I've just conjured them up again. Technology is getting better anyway. I remember years ago, I went on a ghost hunt. Keep disappearing with your cup of tea now. A few years back, we went to a ghost hunt in Liverpool itself. Sadly, we can't get in that building anymore. And we were coming home, and I was dropping the person off. And strangely enough, we were talking about this area. It's a place called Highton. It's where I've first been brought up. And as we were driving along, there was a shadow. There was a person, and you could see his rucksack, but no feature of that person whatsoever. And he crossed the road and kept walking, and he just vanished completely. Don't know where he vanished to or anything like that. So I'm going to go and find out where he is. I'm curious now. So I drove round because obviously I knew Highton. I know Highton like the back of my hand. So I went down all the little side roads. Thought, oh, he's probably cut through the pub there. I'll shoot round the back and he'll be there. Nothing. Never seen that person again. A few days later, I was talking to my son Ian. And I said, "You're not going to believe what happened to me." And he went, so I told him the story, and he went, "Where was that, Dad?" And I said, "St. John's Road, Wilson Road, I said, on the corner." Then he went, "Well, Dad, a couple of weeks back," he said, "I was walking down there," and he said, "I've seen this fella. And he looked like he had a rucksack on." And he said, he walked along, and he said, "And you know where there used to be a door, and it was bricked up?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "He vanished there." He said, "I couldn't work out whether he'd gone into the house or what." And he said, "But I couldn't get my head around it." And he said, "And it sounds like I'd seen the same thing." But where he was saying he was saying, "But Dad, there was no way he could have gone anywhere else but through that door." He said, "But the door's bricked up." He said, "The actual wall, it had been sealed years and years ago, but it was an entrance at one time." And my son's like you, Nigel. He's a very big skeptic. He'll think logically all the time. We've only had him once where he can't explain anything, but
Well, like Jonathan had made mention about different planes. There's a possibility this individual is walking out of his plane into our plane and then back into his plane through a door. Yeah. That door may still be there to him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons, one of the big reasons. They say you will see like spirits that float, because obviously the land over time where like buildings get knocked down or whatever, and where you see spirits go through walls and stuff, that maybe back in their time when they were actually there was a doorway, or the floor was lower, or the floor was higher, or there was stairs or whatever. So that's why they go through walls and stuff.
But the famous one, isn't it, in York? The famous one about the plumber who was working in a cellar down in this building, and a whole army of Romans from the waist up, went marching past them. Yeah. Well, obviously he cleared off, didn't he? But when he researched it and had a look at it, they actually were doing some renovation down there, and they found the old Roman road. And when you looked at the measurement of that Roman road to where this fellow saw the Roman soldiers, he said he didn't not acknowledge him or not, and it was just a march. And when they looked at the road and height and everything else, it was up to the waist of where he said it was.
Wow.
So that would have been normal.
Why he saw
Yeah.
Amazing.
So we're going to go back to the Bad Bens.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think he asked you this in the first round of when we first interviewed you a year or so ago, Nigel. Is what made you come up with the idea of Bad Ben?
Well, I'd been screenwriting for years, and to sell a screenplay is next to impossible unless you know somebody big in the industry. And it's also, entertainment happens to be an industry where not a lot of people help other people out, because a lot of times you have somebody that may be in a position that fears if they help you, it may be something they're missing out on, an opportunity. So I would write these screenplays. I would push them. People had some interest in them, but until you have a check in your hand and that check clears, you haven't gone anywhere. Yeah. But I was making television commercials over here for small market television. It wouldn't be like a TV commercial that played across the entire United States. It'd be a TV commercial that played in local markets. And I had this camera equipment, and people used to say to me, hey, you have camera equipment, you write screenplays, why don't you make your own film? Well, what people don't understand is just because you own a camera doesn't mean you can make Avatar. So I used to, toy around doing little skits and all. But then it occurred to me, because I had security cameras all throughout this house, because I was caring for my mother. And I used to like to be able to keep an eye on her when I was out, and also the home health aides and who was coming or going to the house. And I would often look at these cameras at night and say, wouldn't it be creepy as hell if something walked across that room right now? And then Paranormal Activity had come out, Blair Witch, some 2 decades ago. And I said, I can't make Avatar, but I could make a movie like Paranormal Activity. So the first Bad Ben was made to look like it was shot on all security cameras in a home with no explanation why they were there. And I had no idea when I did it, it would be as well received as it was. In fact, if people ask me this all the time, and I say nobody's more shocked by its popularity than I am, because that film by itself has streamed over 150 million minutes. Wow. Just the first one. And we went on to make a prequel to explain the cameras in the house, and I wasn't in that. Now, this isn't my ego talking, but the film wasn't nearly as popular because people, Ricky Gervais, we owe you guys for him. He made The Office, and that became a very successful series remade over here.
That's right, yeah.
Well, people would equate my character, Tom Riley, to Steve Carell and Ricky Gervais's character in The Office, a guy that thinks he's brilliant, but he's really a moron. And that was Tom Riley's character. Although the first one was kind of dark and all, but people kept commenting, oh, you were so funny. It was scary and funny. So the second one I did, I wasn't in because it was a prequel. I had not moved into the house yet, and it wasn't as well received. Now, I will say it found its own audience because it was basically a standalone story. But I said, well, I guess I got to be in the third one to see if it's me. So with so many people liking the comedy of the first one, we kind of embraced the comedy of the third one and beyond. Definitely. And then in the fifth one, I wasn't in that either till the last 15 minutes. And that wasn't as well received. So there's one or two things I take away from that. Every film I've been in has done very well.
Yeah.
The films I haven't been in haven't done so well. So either I am an exceptional actor or the people that follow me are mentally disturbed. So
I think it's the second one.
Well, I've been described as the everyman. I'm just they said we all have an uncle actually, they say we all have a weird uncle like that in our family. I don't like the weird part, but they all say we have somebody like him in our family, and he reminds me of my uncle. He reminds me of my older brother or this guy I know. But it's just because he's and it's the way I respond to when things happen in the film, which was ad-libbing. You asked me earlier about ad-libbing. The first movie, there was not a written word to the first movie.
Oh, and, right.
I just made it up as I went along.
Well, it's funny because, Scott, I don't know whether we were, me and Marie were sitting down watching, the way you start flicking through channels, and you think, oh, what's going on? You see the same things time and time again. And we saw this and we went, Bad Ben. So the preview come up and we went, got to watch that because it looks entertaining. And I think we watched it 3 times because that's why your ratings have gone up.
That's why I have 150 million minutes. 1 million was just Jamie and Marie.
Yeah.
Well, we watched it. We watched it first, and at the very beginning, we thought this is an actual film about a paranormal investigator. But as it went on, then we started seeing the funny side of it. So we thought, got to watch that again because whatever happened in that, I can't, So we watched it again, and then we saw the next one, and we were like, this is great, And then you put them on your own channel. But
well, actually, 1 through 9. Now, see, here's the problem: you guys over there don't have Tubi, or you don't have Voodoo Fandango. Mm-hmm. So films 1 through 9 right now, my fans in the United Kingdom can't watch, and I'm trying to straighten that out, but they're kind of not under my control at the moment. So, but I'll eventually get it this year. Well, 2023, I'll get it straightened out. But my second biggest audience was the United Kingdom. So 10 and 11 can be seen there on Bad Ben. 1 through 9. Yeah. I mean, there's 9 is on Apple TV, but I don't know. It's not real popular over there.
We pushed Bad Ben a lot, don't we? Yeah, when we're talking on the radio and everything else, we always mention Bad Ben. Oh, you got to watch Bad. It's so funny. Even when you're in the car, when you're driving along in the car, we always mention that as well because it again, that's funny when you're on that. Obviously, we come on and say hello every now and then as well. Right. I've got to ask Scott. I mean, you're a serious actor as well as a comical kind of actor. How did you go from a serious actor to the Bad Ben kind of acting where you're ad-libbing and it's just fun all the way through?
Be careful.
Well, it's serious acting. I take anything serious. As for the ad-libbing, I find that I used to do theater in high school and after high school and stuff like that, and we would do all kinds of exercises where you ad-lib and you improv and everything like that. And I've always found it really fun. So some things you need a script for when you're acting. It just helps drive everything forward when there's a lot of actors and stuff. But like when there's few actors and we both kind of know what's going on, when you ad-lib, it's really fun because you can just be into the character. You don't have to worry about the dialogue as long as you're just driving the story forward. That's all that matters. So it can be a lot of fun. I really like it.
What do I say about scripts?
Oh yeah. Well,
go ahead. You can. I'll say it. He's the straight guy. Scripts are for pussies.
I agree. I mean, I used to. I don't know whether I've ever told you. I used to do a lot of stuff with the theatre. That's why I said I've designed posters. I've done designed all the programs for them. I've done the photography for them. I haven't done it for a few years, but I'm still into that designing kind of thing. I don't know whether you've been onto my Facebook page, Access Paranormal Podcast. I do a poster every single week for the radio show. So I've been looking at the actual Access Paranormal's investigates, and doing one for that on a basis to throw out there with Bad Ben Entertainment on the top of it and everything else. That's my forte of doing stuff, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Must admit he is good at doing that. It's got to be good at one thing, doesn't it?
I missed that. I'm sorry. What did you just say?
I said he's good at the design and the posters and all that, but he's got to be good at one thing.
Okay, yeah. You guys are mean to each other. We're always.
I've got to admit, we have the wickedest sense of humor. Even when we're on ghost hunts, sometimes we'll frighten the living daylights out of each other. But then, I mean, we do it when we're doing an investigation. If it's one of them investigations where nothing's happening, we'll crack jokes, or we'll tell stories, or we'll have a little chat about things. And we've realised when we do that, the spirits seem to think, well, they're ignoring us here. We better do something to show them that we're here. And we've had it many times, haven't we, where we've been cracking jokes and everything else, and suddenly something will happen, and we go, oh, right, let's go serious for a bit. And we'll go serious, and then it'll calm down again. It's like when we were going through the graveyard, and I turned the camera on myself, and I can't remember what I said exactly, but that was because it was like a quiet moment. I just thought, crack a little thing, and I know Nigel replied, and then we went back into the serious side of it then, to show that you don't have to be serious in everything you do. You can relax, you can be yourself, and then go to the serious side. Once I started getting me, I won't give too much away, getting tugs on my coat and pulls, that's when I started to think, hold on a minute, now I'm a bit nervous now. Time to go back to that serious moment. So we're like the Nigel, I nearly called you Nigel Ben, and they're mixing you up with Bad Ben and that.
Nigel Ben used to be a politician.
Boxer. Be a boxer over here. So there's a compliment for you there, Nigel. But I've lost my train of thought there. It's like we love the paranormal. We love the respect of it. We love going out there and doing it. And we absolutely love it now because I won't give too much away about what we do, but we love it because you're there and you're guiding us as well. It's not just us. You're going, go this way or do that, and you're doing it for somebody thousands of miles away and enjoying it. That we're giving you the enjoyment of actually going on an investigation with us, even though you're sitting next to your log fire.
And I absolutely enjoy it. We have a great time. I don't even have to ask him twice if he's available to come over to do it. He says, "Yep, I'll be there."
Well, I've noticed when we're filming, you sit back now and you're dead relaxed and everything. Oh, I disappeared. You're dead relaxed and everything else. And Scott, you're leaning forward. It's like you want to be there with us.
I do.
In fact, I'll do my imitation of Scott. Okay.
Go ahead.
First of all, let me be Jamie. Scott, would you like to ask a question? Would you like to call out to the ghost? And this is Scott. Oh. Spirit. See, he gets into it. He definitely gets it. And I love it. I just, when I say the outsider, I kind of mean I'm the observer also.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting back and watching what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I can sit here because it's my house. So I'll sit wherever the hell I want. So, but it has, I want to thank you guys for the willingness to take us around with you and do this. And on behalf of my followers and fans who have watched so far, the first episode streamed 1,000 times in 24 hours.
Wow.
And, that wasn't because I'm sitting back leaning in this chair. It's because of what they saw going on that side. So I appreciate the opportunity.
But we love it because
we do as well, though.
You actually trusted us, and you gave us the trust to turn around and go, yeah, we think Jamie and Jonathan and Marie can do it, and we've done it. And it's a new dimension to us because we do the same thing week in, week out, and to us it's a fantastic challenge. And it's great that we've got you both there guiding us. And in future, Scott, what we'll do is I'll have to get you to call out more.
Yeah, we're going to get you to do an experiment soon.
Yeah,
I'm ready for anything.
It's going to be interesting to see what
I'm telling you guys, you gotta use them while you can. I don't know how much longer.
Definitely.
Well, when he's in one,
you're going to be asking him the questions, Nigel.
Yeah. I'm going to be
and
asking
he's not going to be. He's not going to be able to see or hear you.
Or hear you.
Him?
No.
Yes, he won't be able to see or hear you during this experiment.
What the hell is he going to be?
Well, he's still going to be sat next to you.
Oh, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. We've done it a number of times now, and it's brilliant. We've got other experiments as well coming up, and if you've got any experience you want us to do, while we're out and about as well, that's fine by us. Yeah. We're up for a challenge as long as not, like I said earlier on, you don't leave me in the middle of a haunted building on my own.
Just leave them in the cemetery instead.
I can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen, guys, I'm getting to the point here where I am going to have to wrap up, if that's okay. But there is that all right?
That's fine. Yeah, we were going to do the same because I don't even know what time it is in the UK now. What time is it now?
9 o'clock.
Here?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Is it? Wow.
Oh, it's 4 o'clock here, so I assume the time dimension hasn't changed.
Oh my God, yeah.
But there is something I want to say about you guys and the reasons why I consider, I like that we're doing the show together. And it is, I mentioned it earlier, is the credibility factor. I don't find you guys, wait, I should pause there. I'm talking credibility and I say, I don't find you guys, I find you guys credible, and I don't find you guys staging anything because let's face it, like I said, there have been some slow parts in the show, and then there's been some fast parts in the show. If somebody lacked credibility, they'd be making everything a fast part. So I find you guys credible, and that's why I enjoy doing the show. And I believe at some point we're going to have something. I mean, I found what we've done so far fascinating, and I only believe it's going to get better.
Yeah, we're the same. We will never fake anything. That's one thing we would never do that.
We've done like paranormal investigations with public, and we always say to them, you could be there for 6-8 hours. So if something's going to happen, it'll happen, and if it doesn't, then there's not much we can do about it. We're not going to stage things or fake things or do things on purpose or make noises or anything like that. If it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And public pay to go on these investigations. If it doesn't happen, then basically it's just tough, isn't it?
Even if I actually caught. Sorry, Nigel, I know I'm keeping you now. We actually a few years back, I actually caught someone faking it on one of our investigations, and without telling them, I proved it, and it was knocking. We kept getting knocking. It was responding to everything we do, and something in my mind clicked, and I went, "Let's try this with the light on." So I put the light on, and we carried on calling out. And I said, "If you're still there, even with the light on, if you've got the power to do that knocking, you can do it now." Nothing. So we kept calling out, and nothing happened. So I turned the light off. And all of a sudden, the knocking started again. So I put the light back on again, and it stopped again. And I actually said, everyone was sitting there, and we were all sitting around. I turned around and said, someone here is faking this. And I said, you've got to stop it. I said, because there's people here who have paid, and you're ruining it for everybody. I've shown you why I know it's someone in here, and I said, I know it's someone over this side. So it's basically pointing the arrow at the person. And that person never ever came again on any of the investigations because I was more upset for the people who were there because they were all thinking something paranormal was going on. when it wasn't.
It's got to be genuine, hasn't it?
You know, we've got we apologized to them and said, look, you know, we had to out it because this is for you, and we don't want you to think that this happens on every investigation. It doesn't.
Yeah.
And we stopped the investigation and went for the break. The person who was doing the knocking basically said, "Oh, I've got to go now because you know it's a bit late. Thanks for having us." And they went. And after that, it was a great night, wasn't it? There was no fakery or nothing. And a couple of things did happen, but not like what happened that night. And it made me angry because I thought, you know, it wasn't fair on us. It made us look bad if we'd have kept it going.
Yeah.
But I just thought, no, I'm going to show them that it's not us and it's not paranormal. So we stopped it there and then.
Yeah,
that was it. Yeah,
I get it. There are people that just will. Sometimes, like you said, you might go hours with nothing, and other times something could happen instantly, or then a bunch of things could happen. But credibility is what matters.
Exactly.
And, I'm thinking that people that are watching this, so I can't wait. I just can't wait to see where this goes. I can't wait to see 6 months, a year from now where this is going.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. We have got another outdoor location next week.
Okay.
Yes. So you're going to like this one.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on again, and thanks for letting me bring this
Hollywood star.
We'll call him Hollywood from now on.
Mr. Hollywood, yeah.
Hollywood Tomlinson.
Do you know what? I'll probably remember that more than Scott Tomlinson.
Hey, I'll go by that too. Whatever works.
Yeah, but no, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on again tonight. And we look forward to having you on our next investigation. Yeah. It's not our investigation, it's all ours. It's all 5 of us. We're just going out in the cold. You're just sitting in the warmth watching us. But it's a teamwork, and it's fantastic. And I think it works amazingly.
Yeah, it works good.
Well, Happy New Year to your listeners and viewers, and we'll see you Friday nights.
You certainly will.
Certainly will.
Have a great evening. And Scott, thank you so much for coming. And Nigel, thanks for taking the time for having a good chat with us as well.
Okay,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you in a few days' time.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.